Hello. Oh, that's cool. I could just leave my face up in the corner. I'm not going to because it would be wildly annoying. Hello. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on when you're watching this. For you, this could be days after you watch the first one, or it could be moments like it is for me making it. We're going to be continuing our look at language today with a hopefully shorter video. The last one wound up at 45 minutes. This one will hopefully wind up at about 20. Again, hopefully. Focusing on setting and sound. Though the video itself should be shorter, you'll need to engage with some clips on YouTube. 5, I think. Meaning that it may well still take you a little bit of time. I would anticipate that properly engaging with this loom will take you the best part of an hour, if not an hour. So again, if you're doing it back to back and you're like, oh, that was a long loom we just did with all the tasks and the pausing and the going and the pausing and going, I'd say have a break because this one's quite long too. I'll try and keep it short. No, the learning intention are much the same, learning about language and being able to identify different areas of media language and what they do. So that's what we're talking about here. Yeah, no, I'm definitely not keeping my face there. It's going to freak me out. So there I go. Hey, look, I put that in the PowerPoint. Your learning intention success criteria are the same as part 1 of the lesson. You learn how to identify certain elements of language and should be able to explain what they are and what they do by the end of this video. The first thing we're going to do is talk about setting. When we're talking about setting, what do you think we're referring to? That's all I want you to write down. What do you think we're referring to when we're talking about setting? And your hint is that it's very similar, if not the same, as when we're talking about setting in English, which you've hopefully done by now. I think my class has done it. All right. Again, copying this down. Setting refers to the time and location in which a piece of media takes place. Setting isn't always a massive factor for analysis, but it is important to be able to identify it. Okay, so you won't necessarily analyze setting to death, certainly not in fourth year, third or fourth year. In fifth year we might, but it's important to be able to identify setting and what's happening with the setting. Looking at setting is, for our purposes, fairly straightforward just now. We'll be looking at a landscape or a scene, and what we're going to do is you're just going to describe what we see, and then we'll state what we can conclude from that. So, description, conclusion. What do you see? What does it tell us? Exactly the same as what we were doing in the previous video this week. For example, now this isn't a task, this is one that I'm going to talk you through. If you want to pause it right now and do it as a task, be my guest, but you don't have to. So if we are having a look at this, you want to take in everything. Your eye might be drawn to the car or the house, but you want to take in everything, including that tiny wee shack over there, which I didn't take in the first place. So it's an older building. It is in disrepair. Okay, it's kind of, you can see it's not very well kept. The windows are cloudy. The doors grubby as anything. There's kind of weeds and plants growing around the base. It doesn't look particularly well kept. It's isolated. We can assume that's part of the same property, which means that there's no other properties around. It's exposed to the elements. It's not in a nice wee copse of trees or anything. It stands alone against the elements of the world. And there is a car in this establishing shot. Now, when I say establishing shot, what I mean is a shot that is used literally to establish a setting or a scene. It'll be a shot that doesn't necessarily focus on the action, but shows us where we are, what's taking place. It establishes where we are. An establishing shot. Well named, you might think, and I would agree. So from that, we can glean this is probably set in the real world. It's got a car, it's got a house, it's got hills, moors, trees, fog, clouds, all that stuff. It's probably in the real world. Given the nature of the car, it's probably within the last 40 years, and it's probably not anywhere exotic. If someone turned around to you and went, "Oh yeah, that's in the Bahamas," you'd probably be surprised. Those of you who have recognised it will already know this is from Skyfall, so it should be set in Scotland in the 21st century. But we're coming at this as if we don't know that. So now I want you to give that a go. We have a setting, another establishing shot, by the way. There's no other reason than to establish and go, "Ooh, look at the pretty," to have a shot like this. So it's just to establish where we are and what we're looking at. So I want you to have a look. I want you to write down what you can see and then what that tells us, quite simply. And if you know where it is, don't start off by going, "This is Hogwarts." That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for you simply to come at it as if you've never seen it before, as if this was the first scene in the movie. What would you instantly be thinking? Remember, pause it and do it, because I'm just going to go on now. So, it's ornate. Ornate meaning fancy. All right, it's got big spires and little spires and smaller spires all the way back there, and turrets and the little turrets and other turrets. So it's fancy. That's what Mr. Corbett deems fancy. It's isolated and out the way, making it difficult to access. We can't see any land connecting to this. We see that spit sticking out with what may be a boathouse, which means that we might actually anticipate there is no land connection to this area, meaning that it is deliberately difficult to access. There's no indication of time setting from this shot, but this place looks very well maintained and looked after. So if this was the first shot we had in a movie we knew nothing about, what could we assume? It looks like a castle, so maybe it's a fortress or a stronghold. The fact that it's isolated, the fact that it's difficult for people to get to, would seem to suggest this as well. It would also suggest it's maybe older. In the modern days, we have generally built bridges to things like this. We've decided it's more convenient. In modern days, we have generally ruined things like this. You'd expect to see some elements of deterioration or destruction. So the fact that it's in good nick and the fact that it hasn't got anything connected to it would suggest that it is maybe older. Okay. Now, if you knew it was Hogwarts and you went down the magical line, it's hard not to when you have that prior knowledge. But remember, we're not saying what it is, we're describing what it looks like. And just now, without, emanating green light coming off it or anything, it's hard to tell that it's magical. It just looks super fancy. Okay, so I want you to describe the setting. He is not setting, he's just a man. He is not setting, he's just a man. The hat is cool, but it's not setting. I want you to describe the setting and what it tells us, what it suggests. So, what we can see, it's empty, it's arid, it's a desert. Okay. The road is modern enough, it's tarmacked, it's painted. You can see off in the distance the phone line looking things. So it's probably accessible. And what does that tell us? The movie's probably set in the 21st century. It's probably set in the real world. Could be set in America. We've got that kind of desert scrubland. We've got a road with lines on it. A long straight road, which is a kind of a signifier of an American kind of cross-country road. So we might assume it's in America. You might have other things, by the way. It doesn't mean they're wrong. It just means these are the things that I noticed. And then we have this one. I'm not, as you can see, there was. There's no task signifier up here. This one's very much like Hogwarts, but I just wanted to draw your attention to it because it's quite interesting. This is actually a scale model. Obviously they couldn't build it. They didn't want to CGI it, so they built a scale model. I believe it's still several feet tall, but it is a scale model of Minas Tirith. That is where it is, isn't it? I'm not going mad. Yeah. Which is cool. The reason we're not going to do this one is because ultimately it's very similar to Hogwarts. It is a massive fortress. Okay, it's a fortified city, perhaps. As you can see, there's lots more to it. Many layers, houses, windows, and things like that. It's built into the mountain. Great spires and stuff. Still very difficult to access. Big walls showing that it is defendable. It's on the side of it's built into the mountain, meaning that you would have to come up and over the mountain and down to get to it from the other side, which most people probably wouldn't be willing to do. So it's a lot of similar things to the previous one. This one I do what you should do. You need to focus on everything you can see. If you've seen the movie, don't tell me about the movie. I want you to focus on what you see. And in this context, you can focus on what's missing. All right? Plenty of time to pause. So it's a big city. It's clearly in the 21st century. You've got McDonald's. You've got Wicked showing. You've got the Rolex store with a big Rolex watch. You have plenty going on. I'm assuming that might be something like Hershey's or something else. I think that's maybe Stella Artois, but I don't know. You've got plenty of adverts here that place this in the 21st century. Okay? So we've got the 21st century. We've got a big city, maybe New York, something like that. But what we also can tell is it's abandoned. It's overgrown with wildlife. The signs are dilapidated. And when I said you can focus on what's missing, although there's lots of cars, there are no other people. Now, I know people technically might not be considered a setting, but for me, I think in this case they are. Not a named individual character. Will Smith here wouldn't count as setting. He is a character. But when you have wall upon wall of people in a busy city, they're not characters, they are part of the background and they become almost like the setting. And in their absence, that's relevant to setting because it tells us something. What it tells us is this is possibly post-apocalyptic, end of the world stuff. Moving on. With setting at this stage, all I need you to know is that you describe the place in which the story is taking place, the time you believe the story is taking place, and what this suggests to you about the story. So you describe what you see and what it tells you. Okay. Now we're going to move on to sound. But sound is a little bit more complicated because everything else we've looked at, from setting to colour to lighting to props to costume, it's all been very visual. All been very visual. But as big a part of a movie is the sound, and yet we only deal with that as one area. So this will take a little bit of time, and you will, at this stage, need to be able to access YouTube. Attached to this piece of homework was the Word document for PowerPoint 2 setting and sound, which has several URLs in it. The URLs should hopefully be obviously labeled to direct you in towards the right thing. You will need that, and you will need to be able to copy and paste the URLs from the Word document into YouTube to watch, or into a search bar to watch the YouTube videos and engage with them. You'll need to have volume for it so that you can listen to them and you can talk to me, or not talk to me, but you can tell me about the sound as we go on. So, I didn't actually read that bottom one. There are two key areas that we will look at, however. These are diegetic and non-diegetic sound. They are pretty much the only two areas of sound that you can look at, but that's how we're going to break our study of sound up. So I'm going to give you some examples of diegetic sound and of non-diegetic sound from a movie. I want you to try and guess what the definition of each area might be. Write it down if you want. Diegetic sound might be a conversation, or a creaky door, or a car starting, or a gun being shot, or someone falling over, or someone cracking their knuckles, or a cough, or a sneeze, or a snore. All of these are diegetic sound. Non-diegetic sounds might be a voiceover. Voiceover meaning that at the introduction of Lord of the Rings, you have Cate Blanchett's character, Lady Galadriel, talking us through what's happening as it's happening. That is a voiceover. Or it could be music playing over a section of the piece of media. And I will give a little bit more detail to that in a moment. I want you to have a guess. What do you think the definition of each one might be? All right. Good type. Creepy tennis ball. Diegetic sound is sound that originates from within the world that you are watching. Characters in that piece of media would expect to hear it. What that means is if you're watching a film and someone says something to someone else in the film, if two characters are having a conversation, that's diegetic. They can hear each other. If someone revs a car engine at the beginning of a race, that is diegetic. The other drivers can hear that revving engine. Diegetic sound is a sound that originates from within the world. The characters could hear it. Non-diegetic sound is sound that is added purely for the benefit of the audience. This means it could be a voiceover or it could be thematic music used to make a scene more intense. So when Lady Galadriel is talking at the beginning of Star Wars, as she's talking about Isildur and Elrond and Smeagol and things like that, they're not looking around and going, who the hell is narrating my life? This is wildly infuriating, because they can't hear her. And because they don't hear her, because they could never hear her, that then becomes non-diegetic. That is something that is not heard within the world that you are viewing. It is added for your benefit to give you some added experience. And James Bond, when he's sneaking about and the James Bond music starts playing, he doesn't start looking around being like, where is this tiny orchestra that follows me around everywhere? He doesn't get confused because he can't hear the music. He can't hear the music because it doesn't exist in that world. It only exists for us. Okay? And hopefully that makes sense. Some key forms of diegetic sound, as I said, might be dialogue, gunshots, any kind of violence, vehicles, creaking of someone moving around a house, a TV in the background, or breathing even. If you're watching a horror movie and it goes so quiet you can hear someone breathing, you know something bad's coming. With non-diegetic sound, it's generally easiest to look out for music that has been added in, not music originating from the scene itself, and things like voiceovers. Above and beyond that, most noises are diegetic. It's important to bear in mind, guys, even the special effects like explosions or lasers or gunshots, even if these are added after the filming of the movie, it would still be heard by the characters. If there's an explosion, even if you know that explosion was added after and so was the noise and things like that, the characters react to it because it's still within their world. It doesn't matter that it's been added in after, because what's been added in after is something the characters are encouraged to react with or to. Moving on. I'm going to have you watch 3 different scenes. There's no adverts. I took out the advert because it was going on a bit long and I felt bad for you. I'm going to have you watch 3 different scenes. Before each one, I want you to create a table like the one below. And what I want you to do, quite simply, is put in your table dialogue and a good chunk of space, music and a good chunk of space, and voiceover, if it's applicable, and a good chunk of space. And then I want you to go, okay, is the dialogue that I'm hearing diegetic or non-diegetic? Does it originate in the world or does it originate from elsewhere? Does it originate as a voiceover or something like that for my benefit? And then just tell me, what does it do? What does the dialogue do? How does it add to my understanding? The music, diegetic or non-diegetic, what does it do? The voiceover, diegetic or non-diegetic, what does it do? Okay. And I want you to do that for each of them. Okay. And understanding sound is very important. This is a very brief, very quick introduction, so you're engaging with the tasks will make it that bit better. All right. Now, obviously, I'm not going to play these videos. but you should have access to Pirates of the Caribbean. It'll be your introduction to Jack Sparrow. Okay, if you can't get the URL for whatever reason, if you YouTube Pirates of the Caribbean opening scene, that should do it. You should have James Bond Casino Royale, your introduction to Daniel Craig's James Bond, and again, try and get the URL, because there are a few different lengths of this one. But if you can't find it, if you go for Casino Royale opening scene, that should be fine. And then the final one is The Matrix. And again, The Matrix opening scene would get you there, but try and use the URL from the Word document. Okay, the Word document will be shared on Show My Homework. Now, I'm going to very quickly in a moment talk about each of these. I'm not going to go into a great deal of depth or detail because it's much more difficult having not just watched it, and it's much more difficult not being able to refer back quickly and easily. But what I would suggest you do at this point is you pause this presentation, you go to the Word document, you watch through these, you make your tables, you fill them out. That will take you some time. I took out things like, did I take it out or did I put it onto the next one? Yes. I took out things like Indiana Jones and stuff like that. Sorry, this the reason I'm saying that is this was originally about 6 videos long, and I thought that's a little bit mean. So I took out plenty, but even still, each of these, that's about 5 or 6 minutes. That's about 5 or 6 minutes. That's a few minutes. Take the time, go through it, and then come back. Now I'm going to click back and quickly talk you through. So, Pirates of the Caribbean, you don't actually get any specific dialogue. You hear some general conversation that dies down as Jack sails in. So it is diegetic because the conversation dies down because people are watching him. And what it allows us to do, it doesn't allow us to understand anything necessarily about the narrative, but we understand the impact that seeing Jack come in has on the people. They are stunned into silence. The music is brilliant. It's non-diegetic. The music exists from out with the scene. There's not another boat behind Jack with an orchestra on it. But what the music does is it kind of messes and plays with our expectations. We start by seeing Jack in the crow's nest, this dramatic symphony orchestra playing this very exciting, dramatic music behind him. We expect a great man and a great hero, and then he jumps down into this small, almost a glorified rowing boat that is sinking and starts bailing it out. And then again, we get him back in the crow's nest as it comes into the dock. We wonder again, has he managed? And then it pans out and we see that his boat is sinking, and he steps off of the crow's nest and straight onto the dock. The music messes with our expectation. The music makes us believe that we're about to see someone mighty, and what we see is Jack Sparrow. It makes it an entertaining contrast. There is no voiceover. I don't think there's any voiceover for any of these, actually. Oh, wait, no, actually, I think there might be. That's a bit more complicated. All right, looking at James Bond, Casino Royale. In this one, you've got plenty. You've got dialogue between Bond and the man whose office he is in, which exposes why he's there and who the man is. The man's a traitor. You've got dialogue at the cricket match, but it's kind of muffled. It's just to show that it's busy. That's about your main dialogue. It tells us what's going on. You've got music, the classic James Bond music. In this case, it's used to build and ease tension as appropriate. And at the end to tell us it's a Bond movie. That is Bond music. And there isn't really a voiceover, so you've not got much more there. You could talk about things like the sound effects, the sound of the gun, the violence, things like that, the cricket, the sound of the crowds. There's plenty more you could talk about there if you wanted to. The final one is The Matrix. Again, you have conversations between Agent Smith and the police officer. which allows the film to elucidate how dangerous Trinity is. The sound of breaking bones, men in pain, to emphasise again her lethality and her danger, like how dangerous she is. So you've got kind of dialogue and more kind of general sound effects. Music again used to build some tension. And I would have to rewatch it to decide if the conversation at the beginning would count as a voiceover or not. I think it's probably not. I think it would count as dialogue purely because it's actually a phone conversation between Cypher and Trinity, I believe. But hopefully you got plenty down for that. Now, that's your class task, and hopefully you've done that, and hopefully you're sitting there feeling proud as punch and like, haha, surely he doesn't have more for us to do. And he does. He has homework. I'm giving you 2 shortish YouTube clips, one of which we've actually talked about quite a lot already, and I would advise you do that one first because it'll be a nice kind of easy run into it. And the other one will be new to you, and I'd advise you do that one second. This is summing up everything you should hopefully have learned about language, which will hopefully be a lot. You'll be the wisest people in terms of media and language. And what I want you to do is I want you to watch it and I want you to pick out, say, 5 elements of language. What you choose is up to you. And I want you to explain what element you're looking at, what is it doing, and what impact this has. Right. Basically, I just want you to analyze the language in these scenes. So, the first one is from Rogue One. It is Darth Vader boarding an enemy ship. And again, this should be in the Word document, the URL. But if you did Rogue One Darth Vader and found the clip where he's boarding the enemy ship on YouTube, then that would be fine. And then you have the Hunger Games, the start of the games. And again, I'd advise using the URL. Now, I'd advise you do Rogue One first. We've talked quite a bit about Darth Vader, so most of it will be recall. The Hunger Games is a little bit different, and that may be a little bit more challenging. Okay. If you have any questions, please let me know. And what I'm going to say, guys, is please only email me the homework. You'll have done an awful lot throughout these 2 looms. But just for my own sanity, so that when I'm getting in lots of things, I know exactly what to focus on. If you can just email me the homework from both of the 2 looms, so the Moana and Star Wars and Buffy and Peaky Blinders homework from the last loom, and then this task from this loom. That's all I need. If it's on part of a greater page, don't worry about it. If it's all part of a document, just make it clear where the homework is. Thank you very much for bearing with me, guys. These will be long looms, and I'm sure you're probably sick and tired of them already. But what that means is we're through language now, and it'll mean that next week we can start talking about representation, and with categories, language, representation, and the narrative under our belt, we've actually covered context by the time that summer rolls around. Which would be great. That's what I'm looking for. Like I said, if you have any questions, please do email me. If there's anything you want to check, anything you want to ask, let me know. Email me your homework. Details should be in Show My Homework, but if not, ed025jcorbett@co.sch.uk. You should all have that already. It's on different documents. I hope you're keeping well. I hope you're keeping safe. I hope the lockdown is not it isn't bothering you too much. And as I said before, I look forward to having you guys in the classroom as soon as possible. All the best, guys. Stay safe, stay well.